You have stopped expecting it. And that specifically is why this reading is arriving now. I want to say that clearly from the first moment before we go anywhere near what the cards showed me, because I think the relationship between your having stopped expecting and the fact of what is coming is not coincidental. There is a specific quality of release that happens when someone genuinely lets go of a particular hope, not the managed release of someone who has decided to appear unbothered while still checking, but the actual bone level, I have genuinely redistributed my attention release of someone who has moved forward enough that the hope has become truly background rather than foreground. That quality of genuine release has an energetic signature. And the energetic signature of genuine release is one of the things that tends to precede a return rather than perpetuate the waiting for one. You have been doing the work of your actual life. You have been building things and showing up for things and becoming more of who you actually are rather than remaining in the suspended state of someone whose primary orientation is toward a specific absent thing. And that forward movement, that genuine getting on with it, that real redistribution of your attention toward your own life has produced something. What it has produced is a return you were not expecting. And the quality of what is returning, what they are bringing back, what they have been carrying in your direction while you were genuinely focused elsewhere, is something I want to make sure you receive with the full weight it deserves. Because this is not the tentative, testing, half step kind of return. This is not someone dipping a toe back in to see if the water is still available. What is approaching carries a quality of genuine, complete, full commitment return that is going to feel, when it arrives, like something that was always inevitable rather than something that was uncertain until this particular moment. Let me show you what the cards confirmed. Let me describe what I felt the moment this energy opened, because the initial impressions were immediate and distinct, and I want to share them before we touch anything else. I felt forward momentum, not yours, someone else's. The very specific energetic quality of a person who has made a decision and who is now in the active process of acting on it, who has left the deliberation behind and entered the doing, who is no longer weighing whether, but only navigating how and when. The momentum of someone for whom the destination is completely clear and the only remaining work is the journey toward it. I also felt something I want to name carefully because I think it is the most important thing I felt and the thing that most needs to reach you before anything else does. I felt genuine change in this person, not the claimed variety, not the kind someone announces to be believed, but the specific, felt quality of someone whose interior landscape has actually shifted in ways that would be visible to anyone paying close enough attention to the texture of how they show up. Something is different, not on the surface, in the structure. The first card in this reading arrived in the position representing who is coming back and the quality of their current state, and I want to describe it with real care because it is the card that tells me whether what is approaching is worth your genuine attention. This card shows a figure who has been in a period of solitude and inward reflection, carrying their own light through their own interior, having done the specific, slow, deliberate work of turning attention away from the external world and toward the deep interior spaces where genuine change actually happens. This is not a card of someone who has been resting or waiting or simply enduring a period of difficulty. This is the card of someone who has been doing the specific, unglamorous, entirely private work of genuine self-examination, who has sat with things they would have preferred not to look at, who has reached the kind of honest conclusions that can only be reached by someone willing to remain in the discomfort of the interior long enough for the interior to become honest in return. What I am reading in this card about the person who is returning is something I want to say directly. They have done work, the real kind, not the kind that makes for an impressive narrative or the kind that is performed to make a particular impression, the kind that is done in private, at cost, without an audience, because the truth of their own situation finally demanded it of them rather than because they chose it. And the result of that work is a quality of clarity and honesty and self-knowledge that was not available to them before, that the previous version of them who was in your life was not yet capable of bringing. I also want to speak to the light this figure carries, because it matters. The figure does not walk in darkness. They carry their own illumination. What is returning is not someone who needs you to be their light or their stability or their anchor. What is returning is someone who has found their own light, who has arrived at a quality of self-sufficiency that was missing before, and who is coming back toward you not from need, but from genuine choice. That is a different quality of return than anything that occurred before, and the difference is not small. The second card arrived in the position representing what this person is bringing with them as they return, the specific quality of what they are carrying in your direction. And this is the card that I want to give the most space to because I think it speaks to something you may have been quietly grieving the absence of. This card shows a single cup held aloft by an unseen hand, with water flowing from it in multiple directions, and a dove descending toward it, the quality of something pure and absolutely genuine being offered from a place of complete sincerity. This is the card of new emotional beginning in its most undiluted, most uncompromised form, before doubt, before hedging, before the managed version of feeling that develops when someone has been hurt or afraid. Just the actual, clean, genuine thing, offered simply and without agenda. What I am sensing this card is describing about what is being brought toward you is something I want to be precise about. This person is not coming back with the same thing they were offering before. Not a revised version of it, not an improved iteration of the same fundamental offering. Something genuinely, structurally new. An emotional openness that was not previously available from them, a quality of being willing to be fully seen and fully known that their earlier version was protecting itself from. The cup is full in a way it was not before, and it is being extended with both hands rather than one, with the full commitment of someone who has stopped protecting themselves from the risk of genuinely offering. I also want to speak to the dove in this card because its presence here is specific and meaningful. The dove represents something of peace, not the peace of resignation or of someone who has simply stopped fighting. The peace of someone who has resolved something internal that was previously producing conflict, who has arrived at a clarity that allows them to approach what they care about without the aggression or the defensiveness or the self-protective maneuvering that characterized their presence before. What is coming is calmer, more settled, more genuinely itself and less of the managed version of itself. Does this feel like it is describing a specific person, Virgo? Someone whose absence has been present even as you genuinely move forward? Someone whose return had stopped feeling like an expectation but has not stopped being something you would recognize and respond to if it arrived? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear who came to mind. The third card arrived in the position I read as why this particular moment is when this return is happening. What has crystallized or concluded or shifted that made this specific window the one where what was building finally tips into motion. This card shows a great wheel at the apex of its turning, the Sphinx at the top, the figures in their respective positions of ascent and descent, the whole mechanism operating according to its own impersonal logic. This is the card of timing in its most structural sense, of the specific moment when the accumulation of everything that has been building across a longer arc finally reaches the tipping point of expression in the visible world. What I am reading in this card about the timing of this return is something I want to name clearly. This is not happening because of anything you did or said or communicated in the recent window. It is happening because the arc of this person's interior work has completed to the point where what comes next is genuinely different from what came before. And that completion has arrived in this specific window rather than a different one, because this is simply when the arc reached its conclusion. The wheel does not consult preferences or schedules. It turns when it turns. And what has been turning in this person's interior has now turned far enough that the external movement becomes the natural next thing. I also want to speak to what this card tends to confirm about the durability of what this return is bringing. The wheel that has reached this point does not easily reverse. What has completed in this person is not a phase or a temporary change in circumstance. It is the completion of something structural, something that required this full arc to produce, and that will not simply dissolve when the novelty of return has settled into ordinary life. What is coming is built to last in a way that what came before was not, because what came before had an unfinished quality to it that required all the complication the relationship eventually produced. I also want to speak to something about the specific quality of how a person changes when the wheel has genuinely turned in the way I am describing, because I think naming it helps you recognize the genuine article from the surface version when they arrive. The change this card points toward is not visible primarily through what someone says. It is visible through the texture of how they show up consistently over time, through the small decisions they make when no significant gesture is being attempted, through what they choose in moments of ordinary friction rather than only in moments of romantic intention. The specific thing to watch for is not the grand gesture of return. It is what happens in the week after the grand gesture and the week after that, in the unremarkable moments that accumulate into a body of evidence about who someone actually is now compared to who they were before. The wheel has turned. The evidence of that turning is in the ordinary fabric of presence over time. Trust that body of evidence above all other things. Inhale with me, Virgo, because the fourth card is the one I want you to be most fully present for. This card shows a couple facing each other with the radiant quality of genuine mutual recognition, the full, open, unhesitating quality of two people who are in the experience of something that is working in the way that things that work actually feel, without the low-level vigilance that tends to accompany things that are uncertain. The sun blazes in the background. Both figures are fully present, fully in it, not managing their vulnerability or holding anything in reserve. What I am sensing this card is describing for what becomes possible in this return is the version of the connection between you that has always been the potential beneath the circumstance. The version that the timing and the unfinished interior work of the other person were preventing from fully expressing, the version where neither of you is protecting themselves from the full experience of what is between you because the safety to not protect has genuinely arrived. I also want to speak to something I sense in this card about the quality of how this return is going to feel in the actual daily embodied texture of being in it. There will be moments, probably early, of the specific, slightly disorienting experience of something being easier than it used to be, of conversations that go somewhere instead of circling, of presence that is full rather than partial, of being with someone and feeling genuinely met rather than reaching across a gap. That ease is not naivete. It is not the ease of something new that has not yet encountered its difficulty. It is the ease of something that has done its difficulty first, that has come through the hard thing and arrived on the other side of it with the specific settledness of something that has been tested. I want to address something specifically, Virgo, about the experience of receiving an unexpected return, because I think your particular combination of qualities creates a specific internal landscape in this kind of moment that is worth naming. Your mind is already assembling the case, both sides of it, simultaneously, because that is how your mind works. That is the fairness principle operating in real time. The case for receiving this with genuine openness, which your analytical capacity is building from all available evidence. And the case for caution, which the same analytical capacity is building from the full record it has kept of everything that was difficult before. Both cases are being constructed with equal care and equal thoroughness. And here is what I want to say about that process. It is appropriate. The assessment is not the enemy of genuine openness. The assessment is what ensures that the openness you eventually arrive at is real rather than performed, is genuine rather than pressured, is something you have actually chosen rather than something you have been swept into by the momentum of someone else's return. Trust the assessment, let it run, and also let yourself notice alongside the assessment what your actual body is doing as you receive this reading. What is happening in the part of you that is not the mind, because that part has information too, and it does not hedge or pre-qualify or account for alternative interpretations. It simply responds to what it knows. And what it knows about this specific situation is going to be part of what you need in order to receive this properly. Let both the assessment and the knowing speak. Neither one has the full picture alone. The fifth card arrived in the position of what this return is ultimately building toward, the destination of the movement that is now underway. And I want to describe it in a way that honors what I actually saw rather than softening it into something more cautious. This card shows a scene of genuine, established, fully inhabited completion in the emotional domain. Two people and the fullness of a shared life depicted with the specific richness that belongs to something that has been genuinely built over real time rather than simply begun. The cups in this card represent the emotional world in its most complete and mature expression. And the number here carries the specific quality of having come through the full arc of the suit's journey, the entire sequence of what feeling moves through in its development from first contact to genuine, lasting establishment. What I am sensing this card is pointing toward as the destination of this return is something I want to say simply and without excessive qualification. Something lasting, something built, not the fragile, contingent quality of something that exists only when conditions are perfect, but the specific, rooted, weathered quality of something that has been tested by reality and has held. That is what this return is building toward, not a return to where things were, an arrival somewhere neither of you has been yet, somewhere that could not have been reached without going through everything that came between. I also want to speak to what this card tends to suggest about the timeline of what it is pointing toward, because I think it is important for how you hold the return as it begins. What this card is describing as the destination is not immediate. It is built rather than arrived at. It requires the actual daily, unspectacular accumulation of time and experience and the specific kind of trust that only accumulates through evidence rather than through declaration. Do not mistake the beginning of the return for its completion. The beginning is genuinely good. The destination is even better. And the path between them requires your full, present, genuine engagement with each step rather than an immediate leap to the conclusion. Before I close, I want to say something directly about the unexpectedness of this return, because I think the title of this reading pointed to something important, and I do not want it to get lost in the fullness of what followed. The unexpectedness is not incidental. It is not a function of you having had poor information or of the timing being strange or of anything having gone wrong in the sequence. The unexpectedness is a feature of having genuinely moved forward. If you had been waiting, the return would feel like confirmation of what was expected rather than an arrival of something you had genuinely released. What makes it unexpected is the genuine quality of your having gotten on with your life, your having redirected your attention toward your own becoming, your having stopped organizing your interior around a particular anticipated return. And that genuine release, that actual forward movement, is precisely what made the space. The return is moving into the room that you created by genuinely inhabiting your own life rather than holding space for something that was not yet ready to arrive. You did that. That is yours. And what is coming back into the room you made is arriving better than it would have arrived if you had kept the door open and waited. That is how this works. That is exactly how this works. If this reading meant something real for you, something that you had stopped expecting, but that this reading is now beginning to feel like preparation for, please share it with a Virgo who might be in the middle of the genuine moving forward and who needs to hear that the moving forward is not moving away. And leave a comment. I want to hear what and who this is about for you and how this reading is landing against the actual texture of where you are. I read every single comment and I hold what is shared in this space with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo, you stopped expecting it, which is exactly why it is coming. The room you made by genuinely living your life is being filled by something that has finally become what it always needed to be to deserve you. Be ready, not with the readiness of someone who has been waiting, with the readiness of someone who was busy living when it arrived. That kind of readiness is the best kind.